So please get your questions ready. We're going to take questions from the audience, and it's not very often that we have this much awesomeness condensed in one place. So take advantage of the opportunity. We have Paige Francis. I'm going to spend a little time on Paige because she hasn't had an opportunity to speak today, and we're so glad to have you. Paige is the CIO for Academic Technology and Shared Services here at the University of Arkansas. She's an alumni with a communications degree. She also has her CIS master's from the University of Phoenix. Really exciting. Paige has been honored multiple times by the Huffington Post for being one of the top 50 service CIOs. She was also recognized in Computer World in 2014 as being a premier CIO. So welcome and thank you for joining us. We have Ammi Ludwick, who's the program director for NCWIT Aspirations in Computing. We have Suzanne Soumaras, Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer at Teradata. We have Kristen Williams, who we heard from this morning, Senior Director of E-commerce and Retail Technology at Walmart. And Annitre Edison, she's going to speak with us next. She's our afternoon keynote speaker, right? I think you are. Oh. She is, and she will, and she's the Senior Director of IT at Tyson. So I am going to take advantage of this opportunity and ask you ladies a couple of questions. I want to start by asking, Kristen, you spoke this morning about pulling women up. And I want to ask each of you to talk about an experience or a tactical tip for this group. What can we do to pull women in our organization up with us? And y'all, anyone can start.
I think that the thing you have to do is, one, you have to be approachable so that women will come to you when they have a need. And I think that you have to be willing to tell them the truth, whether it's good or bad or whatever it is. I mean, I think that there are times when you just have to tell women very directly, look, like, here's the thing, if you don't fix this, you're gonna continue to have this problem. And I think that for whatever reason, we don't always give women really straight and direct feedback about what they need to do to improve. And I think that some of those are the things that made me really rethink, okay, so I need to change this, or I need to adjust this part. And I think you have to be approachable so that women will come to you, and I think you have to tell them the truth. I don't think that that's always all that easy.
Okay. I think the biggest thing for me is leading by example. Growing up in the IT world, I didn't have too many women. I had probably one woman within the first 10 years who I really looked up to, who I believed that she was like a powerful woman. And she actually reached down to me and said, hey, I see potential. So it's not just by leading, it's not only leading by example, but it is something to reach out to people and to basically say, hey, I see what you have in you. Maybe you're not doing everything you can do today. It's just like my children. I tell them, I know your potential. You're not showing it today, but I know what you can do tomorrow.
So I have two items. One is offer to be a formal mentor, and that I think that does both leading by example and also gives you the opportunity to give some candid and constructive feedback, as well as, you know, pats on the back and attaboys. I also think it's important to engage men in the process as well. I think that if we get them, and I say you, because some of you are men in the audience, to embrace this and be the advocate, it's similar to the third-party feedback that we got on our company. It's easier if sometimes a man is an advocate for a woman than it is for a woman to be an advocate, unfortunately. So I think engaging our counterparts of the other gender is important as well.
So that's what I was going to say. So let's just sing a little song. Just kidding. But I actually want to jump off on that. And this is not just because I'm from the National Center for Women in IT, but what I said earlier is absolutely true, that this is not a women's issue, all right? So this isn't just about women pulling women up. That's important. We should absolutely do that. I'm so inspired today by the speakers and by all of you. And that's great, but this is an everyone issue. This is a people issue. And earlier we had a question during one of the lunch sessions about, where are the girls? Where are the women in IT? And it's, about encouraging women. Yes, all that is great, but it is, you have to encourage the men and the boys too. If you don't start at the beginning and talk about this, about computing and technology as everyone can do it, it's going to continue being a biased field, right? So I think we just continue to talk about it as there's no reason why we all can't be whatever we want to be and do whatever you want to do. And I'm going to pull you up just as much as you're going to pull the next person up. And I don't care if you're male or female when it comes to this, but it is about it's about making sure that we're advocating for one another, all right, and making sure that male allies are standing right next to us and they understand that it's a good thing.
So from my perspective, I agree with everything that's been said. Also, I think we have to start walking the talk as it pertains to our hiring practices, right? I have a fairly high level of confidence that I've never been hired because I was the woman in the pool. I think I was the best candidate. And it's not that we don't have females in our candidate pools, it's that we typically, for the IT positions, don't have them in our top 3, and we need to start digging a little bit deeper into that. On top of that, I think, when you think about encouraging kids at a younger age, I have a daughter and she's 8, and she's a massive gamer and she likes to code, 8-year-old code, and my son does too at 10. I think that technology in general is in a period of an identity crisis. People are making decisions about where they want to go in their career paths on what technology used to be and not what it is today. And so I do think that we need to focus a little bit on mapping out what it means to have a technology career in 2018, because it is a perfect fit for a mom. It is a perfect fit for a female right out of college. It's a perfect fit for all the genders, and I'm not on call 24/7. I'm not coding in basements anywhere. I'm not doing that. We need to reintroduce what technology is as a career and that it is a right fit regardless of gender.
Okay, y'all warmed up because that was a softball. I got another one now. So I think as women, especially in a male-dominated field, we often want to be strong. Like, we want to come like we know what we're talking about. We don't want to show any weakness. And so I want to ask you ladies, you're in leadership, you have very accomplished careers. What have you done to reach up and ask for help? And what tips can you give these ladies to be proactive about asking for help?
Okay, so I tend to be the only girl that's at the CIO level wherever I am, right? So I came down here after being the CIO of Fairfield University in Connecticut, and we would have an entire consortium for Connecticut CIOs, and aside from someone running drinks in and out of the room, I was the only female, like always. And so as for reaching up, I tend to combat what a CIO used to be 10 years ago. I try to be a better leader than that, and so when I walk into a room, I literally want people to understand why we're doing what we're doing. I want to understand the big picture of whatever institution that I'm at, and I want to be a value add at that table. So typically that means that I have to learn about things that I don't know a whole lot about, and I am all about owning that from the very beginning. I mean, there are people in here that are in my department, there are people in here that report up through me, and it is not uncommon for me to start a meeting by saying, I don't know anything about this, teach me about it, right? Because I think that in order to build those relationships with individuals that are above me, there's got to be some mutual respect, and there's got to be some understanding that we can teach each other things to get those conversations going. A lot of times past CIOs or past technology leaders they sort of walked in like wizards and they dropped a whole bunch of acronyms and, some jargon, and then they left the room, dropped the mic style, and then afterwards everybody's like, wow, and then they were like, oh, what was that? I don't even know what happened there. And that is never how I want to leave a room, so.
I'm just going to say, I'm not C-level, and I often have to walk into rooms and talk about technology, which, as I said to all of you before, I know very little about. So I sit at tables all the time and have to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing. I don't know anything. And so I learn from everybody all the time. But what I know to be true when I walk into a room of people that are not only like higher level in terms of like the food chain, but higher level in a company, higher level because of knowledge, whatever it is, I have to walk in with a sense of authority about what I know. And I know that about the things that are not just important to me, but so I come here today talking about NCWIT and gender equity, say. But so I walk in with an authority, and that's important to me. And so at some point, somebody would say, some people used to say, well, you need to be the man in the room, right? Not anymore. Like now, I want to be the authority in the room, right? And that's what's important. So,
I don't know if I have I grew up with brothers, so I probably have a little thicker skin than most women do, and that was to my advantage, I think. I think like the other women, I tend to do my homework, so I come into meetings being prepared, and I feel like that's my obligation, whether I'm a male or a female. But probably have a higher responsibility to do that in environments where I don't have the benefit of the information that is subject to specific functional knowledge. But I am a student of everything that I am involved in, and I think that curiosity is a strength. And if somebody wants to see it as a weakness, it's about how I ask the questions, not about what I ask. And if I ask it with a sense of understanding and curiosity, I would be disappointed if somebody felt that was a weakness.
What I would say here is know what your strengths are and be aware of what your weaknesses are. And if you have a weakness, solve for it. You don't have to, that doesn't mean you have to know it and be the expert in it, but you have to know who is, and you have to know who to go ask for help. I was on my way to the office on Friday morning. My leader called me. They're like, I need you to go to this meeting and represent a problem. I'm like, okay, I'm on my way. I've never been to this meeting. It's the first time I've attended this meeting. It's much more senior level executives. And when I got there, I didn't call my leader to say like, so how should I prep for this? What should I say? I called the person who I knew was the very best at doing that job. And I'm like, dude, you have time for some coffee? And he's like, yeah, I'll meet you downstairs. So I met him, and I'm like, here's what I have to say. How do I get prepped? Where do I sit? Can I wear this flowery shirt? No? Okay, let me go find somebody. So I call a girlfriend. I'm like, do you have a blazer? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get my blazer. So like, how do you get yourself ready for whatever it is you're about to walk into? And call the person who you know is the best at it. You don't have to be the best at everything. And if you are, then you're not maximizing the skills of everybody else around you. And people like to be good at what they're good at. So like, pull people up with you and let them have an opportunity. So if I need to go to something and I'm not the best person, which is what my boss did. She's like, she knew she wasn't the best person to speak to this opportunity. She's like, I need you to go cover this. I'm like, okay. So I think you have to do that with others. And then don't be afraid to call whoever you have to call. Like the person that I called isn't even in my division anymore. I don't work with them anymore at all, but I just reached out to my network and said, tell me how to get ready for this. I have 15 minutes, thanks.
I think in about 11 minutes when I talk, you guys will find out that I'm a women's basketball coach, Division III in St. Louis, and I also coach my son's 15U team. This is AAU team. They travel all over the place. St. Louis is a hotbed for basketball. So quick story. Basically, there was a kid that came out of St. Louis he went early on in the draft this last year. His name is Jason Tatum, and basically he plays for the Celtics. So everybody cheer for the Celtics because he's from St. Louis. So basically, he came to us, our organization, and said, I know I can go top 10, top whatever. And we said, that's great. And he was like, I know I can make this much money. Prideful kid, very strong, just like you said, women being strong, very strong, it's very important to him that he's the best. But my suggestion with him was to go find out who is number 6 in your position. If you think you're going 8, go work out with the person who's number 6 or number 1. So don't ever be too prideful. You will hear when I talk, I'm not too prideful, but I do believe I'm a strong woman. I have no problem with saying that. But at the same time, I do every day I want to be better. So if I want to be better, then I need to find somebody who's better than me. Don't be embarrassed about it. Don't be embarrassed. Just go to that person. Hey, here are my weaknesses. Here's what I'm looking for. How can you help me? Because I want to achieve what you have achieved. And don't be afraid to say, and more, because that's the truth.
All right, with that, I want to open it to the floor and ask questions. We got one right there. Awesome. We got a mic runner.
Hello everyone, I'm Divya Chandramoli. I'm from Walmart here in Bentonville. Thank you so much to all the panelists. The whole day it has been so good. This is my first time here and I was wondering how it was going to be for a whole day, but I'm so busy taking notes and you guys are so fast. I guess we covered almost all of the topics, but one which is about not equal, but pay in general. So I'm an international student, and I started working here in the United States about 1.5 years back. So before I came here and when I first landed on my job, I was like, awesome, you gave me a job, I'm really happy. And then there were a few folks who came and talked to me, men and women both, saying, did you ask for a raise? Did you bargain? Did you talk about money at all? I was like, no. I mean, they gave me a job. I was like perfectly happy with it. Do you go to your managers in your meetings or something? Do you talk about money at all? And honestly, I don't. I'm like, I'm doing my job. My manager knows me. Whenever I need a raise, he'll give it to me. But there's this general conception among many women, many young girls, they don't really come out and ask about money openly compared to men. I honestly know many people who I feel like, yeah, I know more than him, but he probably gets paid more. So how can we break this, and what kind of confidence should women get to start talking about money?
So because this is in my wheelhouse, I don't know if I have the secret sauce or the pixie dust. I think everyone should have the courage to have that conversation. Whether you're male, female, young, old, doesn't matter. But I think you need to do it with a level of a perspective and in a gracious way. Because I can tell you, you can say the same words and they can be self-serving, or they can be inquisitive with the desire to understand where your compensation is relative to what's competitive in the market, right? This is not about you and someone else, it's about you and what's competitive pay in the market. So all of the most recent data has shown that majority of what the pay gap is for the time that women are out having children, and they just never catch up. There is part of it that's related to not negotiating, because women tend not to negotiate, because going back to that whole networking, it feels self-serving, and we tend to not do that. But there's so much information out in the ether now that we're all armed with it, whether it's salary.com or Glassdoor or whatever it is. So we're on equal footing. Everyone has the same information. So it's about having that self-talk. And then somebody said it this morning, I can't remember what it was, preparing. Maybe it was you talking about preparing. Somebody was talking about preparing for something, and I thought, I talk to myself in my car. I have the conversation driving in the car out loud because I want to be prepared to have that kind of difficult conversation. And I think it's because I think it's the right thing to do. And so my recommendation is we make the decisions a little bit like change. We talked about it's about whether we make the decisions to have that courage. And all of us will either choose to have it or not, but we all have the same information. And so we all, and now the platform is so open with just all the recent activity. I don't know how many people saw 60 Minutes and Salesforce.com, and go do it now because it'll likely have a much different response than it's had in the past. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we're glad it's happened, right? For whether we want to look back or we want to look forward, I would say look forward.
One thing I would add to that is know your value. Find out what you're worth on the street. Go. You can do the research. You can apply for jobs. You can find out how much you're worth. But know intrinsically in yourself what your value is, and don't devalue yourself because, I don't have this much experience or I haven't done this thing. Know your value, and then go and speak your truth. And so I've done that in the past where I'm like, look, I'm worth more than this, and either you want me or you don't, so you let me know. And it wasn't a threat. I'm like, I'm happy doing this work. I enjoy what I'm doing, but I know my value. And then don't be afraid to step if you need to step. And if you get that level of clarity within yourself, it's extremely freeing. It's extreme. You're not waiting for the next round of layoffs and being like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But you know within yourself, how do you hit the street and go find a job if you need to go do that, and you know your value when you get ready to go do that. So you're prepared either way.
Do we have another question?
Hi, my name is Aleida de la Fuente. I'm from Tyson. My question is about one of the talk about unconscious bias. How we can make those conscious first, and how we can work those out, because that is something that can, hold you back in some cases.
I'm unconscious bias, I guess. I just want to say that on our website, I am my website. On our website we have a whole kind of series of different things you can do about are you unconsciously biased? I'm just going to say we all are. But you can learn how to be a bias interrupter. So and this is nothing against anything that any of us have said, but I would hope that today, that if you learn anything, that you would know when red flag should have gone off in your head. After you heard something, you're like, well, wait a second, did they really just say that? That's what being a bias interrupter means. It doesn't mean you have to stand up and point fingers and say, wait a second, did you really just say that? Because obviously we're in a room full of people that, you can take things the wrong way, all those things. But for you should be able to know, wait a second, I need to question that. I should be questioning that. Even if it's something I said, I should be questioning that. Because maybe it was something that really just didn't sit well with you, and you want to find out a little bit more about it. You want to either get more facts, or you want to understand more. You want to ask one of us, anybody here, something about it. Is that really true? But the fact remains that there are definitely ways that you can overcome your biases, but we are always going to have them when it comes to being people that are in relationship with other people. That's not going to change. And again, it's not a bad thing, because we are always going to be in relationship with people, right? So it's, again, knowing what they are, knowing that we have them, and kind of coming to the table with them, being willing to be open, being aware. And I think that whole show up and pay attention is a very important thing. But again, you can go on our website, ncwit.org, and there's we have a whole series, like I said, on bias interrupting and critical listening. We have a whole thing called a critical listening guide for exactly situations like this. Or when you're at a work meeting, I just wanted to throw this out there. This goes along with salary. This goes along with everything. You're in a work meeting and you hear something that someone says that is a little bit, borders on inappropriate, but is not exactly what should be said right then or there. You have a responsibility to yourself to make sure that that doesn't happen to you again, right? So you have to be able to find someone that you feel comfortable enough to say that to. And I don't know how that works in every organization, obviously, right? But these folks right here are saying, we want to be the open door. We want to be the place where we lift people up, and you have the right to come to us and say, that's not okay. And like when it comes to the whole salary negotiation thing, it is about knowing what you're worth. It's about being able to basically stand in your truth and know that it is a hard conversation. There's lots of hard conversations out there. We have to be able to kind of separate that emotion from it, not because we're women and we're not allowed to be emotional. That's not it at all. But separate the kind of the emotion from it and be able to have the conversation and just know that it's a conversation. It's just a conversation that you want to have. And unconscious bias is that same thing. Wow, this just happened and I need to have a conversation with you about it. Okay.
Ladies, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience with us today, and for answering questions from the audience. And I'm going to welcome Dr. Kiefer to the stage now to introduce our next keynote. So thank you very much.